Okay, getting a little bit into construction, we'll touch this a little bit more tomorrow, but as far as NCRs, non-compliance reports. So like I've sort of got on the slide here. Has anybody heard of NCRs before? A couple of you? What does it mean to you? Is it a good thing or bad thing? Okay, yeah, so we're going to talk more in detail tomorrow, but I wanted to hit it today to get you ready for tomorrow. Okay, so NCRs, what does it mean to you as far as good or bad? Sounds bad, so what's bad about it? Okay, well, here, let's walk through this sort of quick, sort of like the question is, so what are they and what's your definition, would you say? Do you have a definition yet? Okay, strolling through a little more. Who's responsible for what? So in design, bid, build, who's responsible for the inspection? I'm sorry, design, build. We can double up. Okay, design, bid, build, who's responsible for the inspection? State, right? Okay. However, what may you have on the contractor side that they can help your state inspector make it easier on them in their inspecting? Anything particular? Okay, the sample I'd use for pavements. What do you do to help beef up the inspection of pavements as a sample? Anything particular? Okay, how about, since the early 90s, majority of states have a quality control plan for pavements. Does that sound familiar? Which means what out on the project? It's something the contractor, you put in the contract that they're supposed to be following a QCP that is in essence part of a quality assurance plan depending upon what criteria you guys have established. Okay, so on design, bid, build, if they do not meet their quality control plan, does that make your inspector's job easier or harder for acceptance? Harder because of what? Contractor's not following what they were agreed to do, right? So the onus is on the contractor to follow the QCP, okay? So using that same process for a design build project, now who's responsible for the QCP, quality control plan? The contractor. You do not want to dictate their means or methods. So who's responsible for ultimate acceptance of the project or the feature or the pavement? Still the state, but at what point? Do you shut down the plant? Do you shut down the laydown machine? Where's your stop point, or do you have one identified? Okay, so fall back to your quality control plan for design, bid, build. At what point can you shut the contractor down? You could probably shut them down at the plant, oil, contaminated materials, dumping improperly. Out on the grade, can you shut them down? Poor placement, stopping the paver, no oil, no tack coat, right? Different things. So the difference between now let's go to design build with those stop points. What of those, would you use all those stop points to stop the contractor, or would you give them all of them and they'll let you know if any of them go bad? Or would you pick one or two of the variety I just mentioned? All of them? Oh my gosh. Okay, here. The idea behind the NCRs is that the contractor is responsible for the risk, depending upon what you guys have agreed to, and that during that sequential effort, that there's potential points that you can determine can be stop points to say no more. Okay, most states, as an example, would say, hey, well, at the plant, we'll let you go, we'll let you get out to the grade, but you can't lay it down till we have the testing or say the tack coat's down and or the paver's up and running good, or you have your mobile transfer device. Or just look at those steps. If you're going to do all of them, you're going to eat up your staffing and resources time, and the way I guess we would say that you're letting the contractor use you as their inspectors. The purpose of the notice non-compliance report is that You flag it as an item per your criteria that the contractor is not meeting your conditions, and they have to stop and/or correct it, again, depending on what your mitigation measure is. Okay, so does everybody see the difference between design bid build inspection versus design build inspection?
Whose onus is it on the judge whether they are compliant?
It depends what part of that process you want to, if you want to stop them or not. Some states off the top said, well, it's contractor risk, we'll wait until they, here, on a bridge pour. Like they're getting ready to pour, concrete trucks are coming up the grade, rebar is laying on the ground and the forms aren't wet. You gonna let them pour? No. Would you let them get that far to even send the concrete trucks? Well, some states, as an example, what they would do would at least let the contractor bring their concrete trucks up to the pour, but if they can't verify with their quality control plan for steel or pour that they got the rebar off the ground, blocked, forms wetted, trash out, they can't pour past that milestone, because on the flip side, if they poured with steel on the ground, what's one of the solutions? Tear it out. So you think about the physical feature. If they actually incorporate it into its physical feature into the project, what's the resolution? Most people would say, well, we'll mitigate it, or we can treat it with methylate or the epoxy to cap it and stuff. I'm going, to me, that's not a good decision. Keep them from physically incorporating that final product on the grade. But different states have different criteria, so that's something you guys in your groups tomorrow, think about that kind of a milestone that you may want to consider. Okay, does that help you?
So you're defining where the owner of the state will be involved in the process, the inspection process?
Yes.
All of it, as you said,
Yep.
that would be the purpose.
You can set up internal milestones to establish your point to put the stop to it,
Where does that capture
based upon the criteria you put in the contract.
in the contract?
Right. Again, if you want it, you got to spell it out, right?
So we got to notify them that it's happening.
Well, no, well, based upon your criteria, see, to me, I've been on a couple of projects like that. I said, when I went out, I asked the contractor, I said, where's your pre-pour sheet? Contractor looked at me and said, well, my inspector has it. Inspector said, well, our quality assurance manager has. Well, I really don't care, because you're getting ready to pour and it doesn't look right to me. You should be policing yourself, which as a state person makes it easier for you if they're actually policing themselves, so you only spot check. So the NCR would be, you write it, give it to them, depending what your process is to get the attention and get the action, they would have to stop whoever you gave it to, or you may have to give it to a foreman or a supervisor or a field foreman to put the stop to that particular action. So it depends what your current process is, and build upon that to your level of satisfaction and comfort. That's one of the big difference. Construction-wise, you got a lot of construction. You need to recognize that, because otherwise you're going to get buried by the contractor, then you're going to get in an argument saying, well, that's our risk, we'll accept it. And then you'll say, no, it's not, and you'll get into those little silly arguments. So ideally, think about that. So whatever you put in your RFQ, RFP, that those kind of things are spelled out to give you some smoothness to administer. Okay, any thoughts on that? We'll talk more about that tomorrow too.